think you should.
People don't like to admit it, but Overwatch is a pretty simple game. And I don't mean it's easy to pick up, easy to learn, or even easy to play. It's simple in that there's almost always one objective. Use your 6 people to kill the enemy 6 people. And there's different maps that surround that and wrappers that are put on that, but deep down, that is the core of Overwatch. No matter which game mode you're playing, it's always going to be a 6v6 optimally every single fight. This causes a lot of problems that we're going to talk about, but I think all these problems could be solved with one simple solution: adding a new game mode to Overwatch, or a multitude of new game modes that don't just feature one singular objective without any trade-offs whatsoever. Let me go deeper and explain this whole concept here. Overwatch has one dominant meta almost all the time, and people complain about it all the time. Whatever the meta is, people hate it. They want something different. Mostly, they want more than one meta to exist at a time. A few compositions that are all viable that work like a sort of rock, paper, scissors system, where one composition counters another, that one counters a different one, but is countered by the first one, and some compositions go even. You get what I'm saying here. That's what people want Overwatch to be, and that'd be a very fun game. But as long as Overwatch only has one goal, kill the enemy 6 people while they're relatively grouped up in a certain area, with some obvious exceptions to that, but mainly that's the goal of Overwatch. You just gotta kill the other team and take the objective. And I know a lot of people will say I'm oversimplifying it, but am I really? I mean, if you look at all the different game modes we have in Overwatch right now, we have Assault, we have Escort, we have the hybrid mode that's Assault and Escort, and then you have Control Point game modes. And all of them feature the same meta for the most part. There are some maps where different heroes are picked because there's a little gimmick on that map. Maybe some maps you can boop enemies, so you pick Lucio or Pharah. Some maps feature more walls, so you pick these heroes. It changes a little bit, but most of the time the heroes don't switch too much. Maybe 1 or 2 changes are made, but that's it. And a lot of the time those changes aren't even made. What's the point of having 4 game modes if we all play them exactly the same as the others? These game modes, I think, should be made more dynamic. For example, on every single game mode so far, if there are attackers and defenders on the point, it doesn't matter how many of each there are, the point does not contest. Wouldn't it be a cool, interesting twist if on control point maps, the team with more players on the point captures it faster? That would be a game mode that favors tanks a little bit heavier because, you know, you can load them onto the point, you could probably cap it while the enemy team's still there, and you have higher health pools to work with, so you can maintain being on the point longer. That would switch up the meta a little bit, at least on those maps. That would be cool, but as it stands right now, all of the capture mechanics are the same. Another mechanic that's exactly the same across every game mode is the respawn mechanic. When you die, you have a set time until you respawn, and that's it. In overtime, it's made a little bit longer, but that's not too crazy. That also happens on every mode. What if on certain maps, like let's just say 2 capture point maps, what if on 2 capture point maps, both teams utilized a wave respawn system, where you have a timer that counts down from 30, and when it reaches 0, everyone who is dead then respawns. You could even set it to be only defending team that gets this system if you think it's unfair. This would be pretty cool. It would prevent stalling. It would make it much more tactical of a game because the attacking team would then have to time their attacks to make sure they're killing the enemy team at the proper time. That way they don't just instantly respawn with a wave and you're forcing their respawn to become something like, I don't know, 30 seconds. This would be interesting. And I'm not saying that this is the mechanic we need. I'm saying there's so much to explore here. There are a lot of things that do not change across all of the game modes. In fact, most things do not change across all game modes because, well, like I said, it's all over the same wrapper. Kill the enemy team. That's the wrapper, and there's no changes to it whatsoever. I think subtle changes like this could do wonders for the game. You know, mix up the meta on certain maps so the game isn't as straightforward and stale. I think it could also improve the teamwork required at the game's core, which would make it far better than it is now. Any game that requires more teamwork, I think, becomes a better game, and that would also help the pro scene on top of this. Now, my idea was to create a whole new game mode. These other ideas were just things I thought of on the spot. I think to drastically change up the meta, there needs to be a new game mode that features more than one objective at the same time. I'm not talking like CSGO where it's elimination style and there's 2 objectives and the teams can choose to go for each one. That's not what I'm after here. That wouldn't work in Overwatch. I'm talking maybe you have one main objective, but you also have some side objectives that can make obtaining the main objective easier. And so the teams have to decide, do we want to make the risk of going to this side objective and waste time trying to get it? The other team might stop us or you know, stuff like that. I think decisions need to be made, and not just the decision of when to go in and go for the only objective in the game. I think that would make Overwatch much better. And don't get me wrong, I love Overwatch. Whenever I make these videos, I get comments like, wow, you're complaining about Overwatch, but you play it 6 hours a day. It can't be that bad. You're right, it's not that bad. I love Overwatch, and a lot of people do. I'm just looking out for the game's future, because to be honest, some games, Overwatch included, scare me when it comes to their future, because I don't agree with current decisions being made. And I think I've made it very clear that I don't like that Overwatch develops very slow. But I think this could remedy that. If you give us some new game modes that require these other metas, it'll allow you to balance more slowly at this pace you want, because there's more content in the game to work with. There's more variety and different things to do. When the game only has one meta, people are going to complain. They're going to want you to develop faster because it feels like there's only one thing to do. Sure, you're going to tell me you can still play other heroes. You can switch different heroes that are in the meta or even play off meta heroes. And that's true. I'm not denying it. Overwatch has some variety right now when it comes to the hero choice. There's a lot of things that can work. Actually, everything can work at every rank if you're good enough with the hero. I don't doubt it. But it's harder on some heroes than it is others. And this doesn't seem fun. It's no fun knowing that Soldier 76 is always going to be a better and easier choice than Hanzo or Junkrat or stuff like this. So my suggestion, my so-called solution for this isn't to try and balance all the heroes in the game at once, because that's impossible. Not even the best dev teams could do that. I firmly believe that is truly impossible to do. But you know what's not impossible? Changing up the game at its core just a little bit in different areas and different game modes to make it so different heroes have their moments to shine, and then you'll have your Soldier 76s that can always shine. That's fine. I'm sure many Junkrat mains would just be happy if there was one game mode at least where Junkrat was considered a viable pick. Or the same goes for Hanzo, Widowmaker, or any of these gimmicky heroes that not many people like to see on their team. Tell me what you guys think down below. I think the meat of the video is the part where I talked about what the solutions would be, like changing up the respawn system on one game mode, or the capture system on like the taking the objective system on the control point game mode, or adding a second objective that makes getting the first objective easier in some way. That way teams actually have a choice of whether or not they want to pursue one objective or the other. Tell me what you guys think about those ideas. I will see you guys all later. Have a good one. Level Hawk out.